Hello everybody and welcome to another video. This video is part 10 of my F1 2020 MyTeam Career mode, and we are here for the French Grand Prix around Le Castellet circuit in France. So this is going to be a good race. We've got the major engine upgrade coming through for this race. It's going to be for the magnetic compound and ERS system. So that means we're going to be able to just have better ERS, be able to use it more and get better straight line speed down the straights. So yeah, without further ado, let's go for qualifying for the French Grand Prix. Traditionally, this is a track that's gone very well for the AI. They are very strong in the third sector, namely. So we've got to be able to try to make up in the first two sectors as much time as possible. So we've just got to do our best. We can't do anything about it. 110% AI. So we've just got to compete and just do our best to compete against the very strong AI. So as you can see here, starting our first run, we're getting a very, very wide line just so we can open up the final corner a bit more and just overall get a better run down the start-finish straight. But as we come through to start our first lap, we're hopefully going to be able to get a nice first sector. I do like this first sector a hell of a lot more than previous games. It is one of the tracks that has been remodeled slightly. As you can see, there's much more undulation on the first two corners and it's just much nicer to take. So going through the final corner now, it could have been a bit better as we touched the inside curb. You don't really want to be doing that as it can compromise your exit, but we take the shortest line possible as it comes straight line down to the line, and it's going through a 130.128, and that does put us in last. But with about 8 tenths off of Louis Delatraz, so hopefully we can improve. Obviously, a trope that's becoming a bit boring, I'm not gonna lie, in this career mode, is that my first runs aren't terribly great, so there's always time to improve. So going through the first two corners now, taking it much more aggressively, getting right on the limit, on the white line, on the exit of the corner, and it does put us like just about on par with our time. We didn't improve in the second sector, but in the third sector we get a much better run down the lot of the final corner, and that does put us about 500ths up on our time, and that does put us into P21 in this qualifying session, and we're matching Delatraz, which is always good. It's always good. So now, as we go to start our final run in this qualifying session, we don't take the first two corners as well as we could with 300ths down, but going through down the start back straight now, we're a 10th up, and I would absolutely nail this chicane. We'll take it absolutely perfectly, and we actually end up 1.5 tenths up, nearly 2 tenths up. So going down the back straight, we are actually a 10th up on Grosjean. So, but the final sector, as I said, is OP for the AI. It's ridiculous. As we come through the final two corners now, we do actually lose a bit of time. We don't quite get the best run out of the corner, and we are only one, and we do lose time in the final sector is what I'm trying to say. But we do come through for P20 in this qualifying session, and it's 29.6, which is absolutely great stuff. And we do out-qualify Louis Delatraz as well, which is very important. So we're starting. We've got I think it's Russell is starting ahead of us, if I'm not mistaken. No, we're starting ahead of both the Williams cars, my mistake, as Delatraz starts in P19, so even though we jumped him, we jumped both the Williams cars, and that puts us ahead of both of them, and just behind Delatraz by about 2 tenths, so we are just about on the pace, so it's not a terrible qualifying, but now it's time for the French Grand Prix.
Here we are once more at the Le Castellet circuit for another round of this year's Formula One World Championship. Renault took their first French Grand Prix win all the way back in the inaugural race in 1906, but it was another 73 years before they could take their second. So they'll be pushing hard to delight the local fans here today. 6 lefts and 9 rights give us a total of 15 corners here at the Circuit Paul Ricard, and a lap covers an overall distance of 3.6 miles. Average speeds will be somewhere in the region of 142 miles per hour, and they'll be maxing out on the Mistral Straight at around 205 miles per hour. Joining us today to oversee all the thrills and spills, it's Anthony Davidson. And it's great to see you. How are you feeling about the race today, and how are the circuit conditions from what you've seen?
Well, it's looking a bit cold out there, if I'm honest. These tyres have quite a narrow operating window in terms of the temperatures they need to extract the best grip. So with a cold track surface, it's going to be harder to keep those temperatures up, which will lead to lower grip and maybe more mistakes.
It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Good job yesterday from Valtteri Bottas, The fence starts from pole position, and it's Lewis Hamilton alongside. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Leclerc, Vettel, Max Verstappen, and Albon, Perez, Ricciardo, Stroll, and Pierre Gasly, Kvyat, Sainz, Esteban Ocon, and Raikkonen, Norris, Giovinazzi, Kevin Magnussen, and Roman Grosjean, Delatraz, the Professor, Russell, and Nicholas Latifi. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today?
We are on the grid for the French Grand Prix. It's going to be a fairly straightforward strategy, soft to hard, but there is rain due in this race. It should hit within about 10 minutes of the race. So we're starting on the medium tyres so we can go straight to that rain period and not have to worry about tyre wear. But now here we are on the grid. It's 5 red lights. And away we go for the French Grand Prix. Delatraz gets a brilliant start, and we get bogged down on the start, as we usually get a fairly decent start, but we do get jumped, but George Russell off the line. Nicholas Latifi remains behind us as we go to turn 1 now. We send it around the outside of him and Delatraz, and even Roman Grosjean. So that is us up into P19. We're going side by side with Grosjean though, so the move isn't done. But now going through turn 2 now, we're still side by side with Grosjean, but as Magnussen is the next car ahead of him, so we've just got to make the move done and defend with all our might, and just stay ahead as we send it round the outside of Magnussen and down the inside of Lando Norris into the next corner, and that is absolutely brilliant stuff. We're up to P16, right behind the 2 Alfa Romeos, so we've had an absolutely fantastic start, but we are still side by side with Lando Norris going down the back straight now, as we do run a little bit wide, and it does get us a warning. So now overtake is on. We're not running in rich mix yet, as we just need to save the engine and make sure it doesn't overheat. We're now going down this back straight. We are 3 wide down this straight. We actually get hit off the track, and that gives us another warning. So we are still, after 1 lap, we are 1 away from a penalty, as we're still side by side with Lando Norris. Now going through to this extra bit of the straight, there's a right-hander after this, so we've just got to make sure we stay ahead of him and be able to get ahead of him, and the move is complete into this right-hander, and that's absolutely brilliant stuff, as Giovinazzi and Sainz are the next 2 cars. So it's absolutely great stuff. So now going through this very clumsy third sector, which I'm not a big fan of, but now Lando Norris is right behind us with Kevin Magnussen in P18. So going through now up to the final 2 corners, we've just got to make sure we can defend these positions. If we can defend these positions, we know we've got good pace in the wet. As Lando Norris sends it down the inside from absolute age back, and we have to defend it. We squeeze him to the outside a little bit, but now we're still side by side in first gear. We get a much better exit. We're in overtake mode, and we do have the more powerful engine than the McLaren, as we do both have Renault power units. But we're now ahead of Lando Norris. But now going on to lap 2 now, Lando Norris sent it down the inside once again. So they're adamant to make this move stick the AI, but now we squeeze him to the outside once again for another defensive manoeuvre, as Magnussen actually gets ahead of Lando Norris on the exit of the corner just from our defensive move, and that is absolutely great stuff. And that does mean we are vulnerable now to Magnussen, who has the 5 power unit, as we do run right into penultimate corner, as we are running side by side once again. So we run a little bit deep into the final corner this time, but we do defend the move successfully and cleanly, might add. So on to lap 4 now, we are in P16. And we are, though, do all this defending, we are losing a load of time to the cars ahead. But now Magnussen, sends it from an absolute age back like Lando Norris. We squeeze him, but we're still running side by side into the final corner, but we do make it stick once again, as Lando Norris does get past Magnussen after that final corner. So we're defending for our life at this point in this race, and on lap 5 now, we do run right, and that does mean that Lando Norris goes for a move, and we do actually make a bit of contact. That does put us out of shape on the exit of the corner. We're running a little bit side by side, but now going into this penultimate corner, he sends it down the inside once again. We have been starting to adapt our line for that AI attack, but it's not enough. They just send it to the inside free willy-nilly, and we can't do anything to stop it. But now going down start finish straight, we defend from Norris once again, as cars are starting to hit this race who started on the soft tyres, and that puts us up into P11 as the rain is starting to fall on lap 6 in this race. So it's going to get a little bit interesting now, as we have made the perfect strategy call. Giovinazzi is ahead of us, but he's not pit on this lap, so that does mean that he's going to stay ahead of us. And on lap 7 here, we're getting the call to change strategy and pit onto hard tyres on lap 12, but that's not happening. We're pitting this lap onto intermediate tyres, as it is time for the wet weather tyres. We do decide that it's the best strategy call, as we can see we run very wide in that chicane. So now going through the penultimate corner now, we're running very wide, struggling on these conditions, and we break for this pit lane, and we do make it in without a penalty. Delatraz is pitting at the same time, so it will be a double stack, so it's got to be a great pit stop from our pit crew, and it is a very okay pit stop, 2.1 seconds, but we haven't been jumped in the pit lane, so that's absolutely great stuff, and we are now maintain position. We do rejoin the track in P12 in this race, and there is a free position to be had here, because George Russell has not pit in this race, and he's stayed out on the medium compounder tyres, and that's not going to do him any favours. So as you can see now, the gap is 16.3 seconds to Russell, and by the end of the lap he does come into pit, and we do get it done. But Giovinazzi does pit at the same time as Russell, but we're not quite close enough to take advantage and gain the position. So now on lap 12, Sebastian Vettel and Max Verstappen are behind us, but now George Russell is out of this race with an engine failure. So now as we ride on board with George Russell, yeah, it's just his engine goes. It doesn't go up in a puff of smoke, but he does retire from this race. So. But now behind us is Vettel and Magnussen. Vettel and Verstappen did start behind after penalties and just overall bodging of strategy in this race. So we've just got to make sure that we hold them at bay for as long as possible to maximise our chance of points in this race, as there is one more retirement ahead of us and we are in 10th, and that will be our first point. So that is what we're playing at. So now Magnussen does get past Sebastian Vettel on that back straight, and now he's already homing us in. It was 2 seconds on that back straight, and now it's 1.2 seconds after the final sector. He's gained 8 tenths in one sector, so he's got absolutely ferocious pace, as you'd expect in the Ferrari. But now on the lap 17, third sector, Vettel is now right behind us. The gap does come down to 0.3 of a second as Raikkonen does pit again in this race. But now as we going through the final sector, we're just trying to defend our position as we do run very wide, and that does allow Vettel to go through. And on lap 17, we are planning to pit in this race, so we hopefully send it around the outside of Vettel, as we do try it, but it doesn't quite work. And we are now going into the pit lane now, and we just about get slowed down, and hopefully it's another decent pit stop. So Delatraz is pitting at the same time, but just due to strategy and how the gap, he shouldn't be held up in the pit lane. But now we don't have the best of pit stops, and we do get held up in the pit lane by Sebastian Vettel, who does come out ahead of us again, but we couldn't quite get back ahead of him. But that does mean that we are now into P12 in this race, and Magnussen is the next car behind us. So we've just got to do our best here. We've got to defend the positions as well as we can, and just keep ground, and just hopefully there are some incidents ahead that can get us points in this race. It will take a miracle, but it's the best we can do. So as now more cars do pit, as you can see, Max Verstappen is in P14, and so we just got to make sure we come out. We've got to make sure that we just come out and absolutely put in some laps. As you can see, he does come out of the pit lane, and he has a 10-second gap. Nearly 11 seconds. As you can see here on lap 21, it's now 6.8 second pit stop. A gap to Verstappen. Now he's taken out 2 seconds a lap on us. As you can see, it's 4.5 seconds now at the same point in the next lap, and now it's 2.3 a lap later. He's taken 2 seconds out of us a lap, and Magnussen is just sticking around. And now the next lap he has caught up to me and Magnussen, so we've got to hope that Magnussen does hold him up long enough so we can take it, so we can just have a big enough gap. So now Verstappen is going for a move of Magnussen now at the end of the first sector, and he sent it down around the outside, and which will turn into the inside, and he makes the move stick, and that's troubling for us, as we're going to have to put some of the best laps of our life here to make sure we can stay ahead of Verstappen. Now going on to lap 26 in this race, Max Verstappen is the next car behind us. He's 2 tenths away from us. So we've got to put in some deep stonking laps, and we just make sure we stay ahead. So now as we are on the next lap, lap 26, onto the back straight, Max Verstappen is close enough to have an attack. Onto the back straight now, we're lifting through this right hand as we can't quite take it flat in these conditions. Now overtake is on. We can't push it into Richmond as we have used most of our fuel for this race, and we've got to conserve a bit so we can make it to the end. But now we're on the inside of Verstappen. We send it down the inside, and hopefully we can just defend the position nicely. So he's got the inside for the next corner, but now we've got to run it around the outside. We get the drive out of the corner, and luckily that he's got the Honda power unit, which is down on power compared to us. We get the overtake button, we get the move defended successfully, and now we've got one more lap, and that is the one lap we've got to defend the position. So now lap 27, it is now technically heavy wet rain conditions, and it is getting onto the full wet tyres. So now as Max Verstappen sends it down the inside of us in this first sector, we're trying to hold it around the outside, but we do eventually. We can't quite get the traction as we are on the curve, but now we're trying to get a run out of this corner, but Magnussen sends it down the inside of us, so we've got to defend that position from him and attack Verstappen at the same time. So now overtake mode is enabled. Hamilton wins this race, but that's not important at the moment, as Verstappen is the next car ahead of us. So we've got to we need to try to gain all the time on him if we want to get P12 in this race. It won't be for points, but it'll be a pretty down good finish, and now that'll be the third great finish on the trot. So now going through this right hander now, overtake is still enabled, but we're not quite gaining enough. and it's not enough. As we go through the final sector now, that Red Bull will come into its own, and that is it for this race. It's been an absolutely action-packed race, but we do come through the penultimate 2 corners. Magnussen does have a little bit of a look down the inside, but it's not quite close enough. But we do come through for an absolutely brilliant P13 in this race, and I think everything just went perfectly in our favour, and it's just absolutely perfect. Nice job, everybody, and let's keep this momentum going.
Race over. Take care of the car on the way in.
Another superb French Grand Prix comes to an end, and it's a thoroughly deserved victory. Talk to me, Ant. What was it that set them apart from the competition today?
Well, keeping their tyre temperatures up in the tricky wet conditions was really important. There's not much grip out there at the best of times, and it's 10 times worse if you're out there on cold tyres. So the way they kept the rubber in its proper operating window was a huge advantage today.
Mercedes are on top form once again after an excellent race weekend. It's great to see them up on that podium once again. So then, it's time to see how this result affects the Drivers' Championship. Our championship leader is still sat at the top of the standings, but their rivals have made up some solid ground today. Now, let's discuss, Ant. Who would you say is a contender for Driver of the Day?
Difficult call, but I'd like to say Esteban Ocon. He's just so gifted at getting the most out of his tyres, and he showed that today.
Let's move on to the Constructors. Mercedes continue to extend their lead. Well, Ant, an end to another fantastic weekend of racing. Thanks to everyone who joined us, and we'll see you for the next one.
So after that French Grand Prix, we come through for an excellent P13 in this race, and Delatraz comes through for P20. It could have been a better race for him, but he just got very unfortunate with strategy in that race, and he did have very similar pace to us, but he just had to double stack it when it went to wet conditions, otherwise he would have lost more time. We did lose out to Vettel and Max Verstappen in the Ferrari and Red Bull respectively. Got out there eventually, but that's to be expected. They're in much better cars. So now here we are for the management section of this video. We've got to allocate activities, but we have a sponsorship renewal, but we don't decide to renew it as we can get better sponsors now. So now we've got all these sponsors to choose from, and we're looking at weekly income as that will be the most beneficial to the team. But now we have decided that we want to go for Alkine's Energy. It's complete a weekend without touching another car, and that's fairly simple to do, and that is very nice cash bonus as well. So now we've got to stick the sponsor on the car, and we're sticking it basically where the other sponsor was, like the Avazza sponsor was before, and it just makes the car look less bland. And it does. I do think it is an actual nicer looking sponsor, if I don't mind saying. So it does. It is good. But now, as you can see, here's how the car looks now with the new sponsor on the car. The Atlantic sponsor, I think, is the best looking on the car as it suits it. But obviously, we've got our main sponsor, gives us the most money and all that. But now we allocate activities. We've got all these to choose from marketing to driver filming and chassis department, team building. But we do decide that we want to go for a reaction training, as that does improve Delatraz's awareness and overall just make him a better driver in traffic. So now here we are. We're looking at the R&D tree. We were considering another engine upgrade, but we've been putting a lot of focus into that, and we've fallen a bit behind on aerodynamics and chassis. So we've decided we want to go for a rear downforce upgrade. I would go for front downforce, but I do prefer a much more stable rear, so I will do that first, and then overall we can do a chassis upgrade next, as we do need to start building those departments up. The next Grand Prix is the Austrian Grand Prix, so be sure to tune in Tuesday for that. And overall, everybody, thank you for watching this video to this point. If you have, just thank you so much. It means a lot to me, and all the support ever since starting this channel has been absolutely sublime. And thank you to everybody who's been watching these videos religiously, as yeah, it means a lot, especially going through all this effort to start the channel again. But, like I said, thank you guys for watching this video. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and press the bell icon to know whenever I've uploaded a video. I will be returning to my upload schedule, which is Tuesday and Friday at 8 PM, so be sure to keep an eye out for that on my Twitter account. And follow me on other socials at Slimbo0 on Twitter, and so you'll get all the updates on what I'm getting up to in the real world. And thank you for watching, and everybody, just have a great day.